Go. Oh, we're live. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Madhouse. How are we all? Obviously, we are expecting Kerry, who's setting up as we speak. She's just done her hair. But I think we should start with our topic about mental health in schools for undiagnosed children. So I think we should. I don't know. How do you all feel about that? So I think we should go in order. So I've got Nick next to me. So let's kickstart with you.
Yeah, so I started. So I'm a writer as a background, but last year I started doing some one-to-one work with special needs children. So I work at a lot of different schools for an agency, and at the moment I'm working with one particular child in a school. But what I found, I thought a bit shocking, was there's a lot of the children who have special needs in the schools I worked last year. The teachers would say that they had something on autistic spectrum, but they didn't have a diagnosis. They weren't diagnosed or anything. They hadn't had an assessment, so they knew they had something on the autistic spectrum. And I was just quite surprised that they hadn't had a proper assessment. They knew what it was. Maybe that's. I was quite surprised by that. So, because how can children get the support they need if they don't know what their needs are? You can only know what their needs are if you know what sort of.
Absolutely.
So that's.
Let's move on to Ashley.
Well, my children are homeschooled, but I did have an adopted son that was in the public school system here in the United States. And I feel like there can be a wide range. You can have underdiagnosis for kids and you can have an overdiagnosis. You have teachers that are attempting to diagnose something that a medical professional should be diagnosing. Now, at the same time, when kids are in their care all the time, they might see things that parents aren't necessarily seeing. And yes, there is a way to approach that, but I also feel like it needs to be more of I don't want to say a delicate conversation, but I just think that there are times that teachers overstep. They will overdiagnose a child with ADHD when in reality the child is just bored because they're more advanced for what they're doing in school and they don't know how to sit still. And quite honestly, if my children were in public school, I feel like it would be that scenario for my boys, especially because public schools are not designed for boys. Boys need to move and they need to be active when it comes to being in school. Girls, it's a completely different story. Most times, that's not always the case. But that's just my 2 cents, I guess. Take it for what you will.
Absolutely. Right. Oh, all right. Once he's back. Welcome to the show. I like I said, I'm going to get this wrong all night. Welcome to the show, Jen.
Thank you. My name is Genevieve. You'll have to excuse me. I'm coming down with a cold. I'm starting to lose my voice a little bit, so this is like perfect timing to be on a podcast. I sound like I'm a 14-year-old boy going through puberty right now, so excuse me. I am a longtime educator. I'm from the Flathead Reservation in Montana. I've been teaching for over 25 years. I have 4 brick and mortar early education facilities. So my main focus and experience has been in early education, so pre-K prior to kindergarten. And I also have a curriculum company. We sell nature-based, mindfulness-infused curriculum to both classroom and homeschool educators for pre-K all the way through elementary school with supplementary education for middle school and high school. And coming from a background of early education, diagnosis and early intervention is a really important part. A lot of kids are getting diagnosed or showing symptoms of spectrum disorders in that 2, 3, 4 years old is when a lot of times families are starting to see these things. And so we have a lot, that's the age group that I focus on in my schools. So we have a really strong relationship with some of the different agencies in the city. We're able to refer if we see anything. All of the teachers are very adept in looking towards just kind of different developmental milestones and behaviors and such. And like Ashley said, it is a really, really, I think, particularly with public school, I think there's a lot of issues with public school. I think there's personally, I believe, a lot of overdiagnosis and a lot of diagnosis coming from inadequate environments, which is why I'm such a huge proponent of nature-based education for kids to be able to be outside, to be able to move, even within a classroom, being able to move, instead of sitting in a chair, having a ball to bounce on, or, being able to just move your body. Children, as their brains develop, need to have that stimulus and the movement. So I think there's a lot of, misdiagnosis and overdiagnosis that comes from improper environments where children aren't allowed to develop as human beings were meant to develop. So, but I'm very interested in the topic, and I personally, we've developed our curriculum to be really supportive for neurodivergence and all different types of learning styles, because there are so many different types of learning styles. And unfortunately, with the public education system, which I think this is just across the board all over the world, with Western industrial sort of capitalism, based education, where your whole focus is teaching kids how to memorize, regurgitate, get them ready to go work for somebody, right? I think that's where we see a lot of kids fall through the cracks, because it's a one-size-fits-all approach. And there's so many different learning styles of kids. And so I think a lot of what gets diagnosed is really just improper environment for specific kids. So.
Absolutely. Yeah. And welcome, Leanne.
Hi. Sorry, I was making some notes, so I wasn't trying to ignore
Okay,
everybody. I wanted to address everything. So yeah,
how are you?
I'm good. I'm finding this very interesting as a 18-year veteran special education teacher in the public school system. I agree and I don't agree with some of the things my colleagues have said. I'm also a respite care provider and a Judaic Hebrew school teacher. Mental health in the public school system is something that's understood and not understood. On the one hand, I do agree with some of my colleagues that there's a lot of information out there, and on the one hand, teachers are aware of these things, but due to a lot of media, right? They're like, oh, but they're also not aware of it. Now, in terms of diagnosing, by law, we are not allowed to diagnose, period. So I'm not quite sure if people mean that teachers think a child has something and then they say something to someone. But again, you can actually get in trouble for that. You're not allowed to do that. You can say they exhibit these specific type of behaviors. This is what I've noticed. And you refer them out to get a diagnosis, a referral done if they need help, if need be. I wanted to address that because if I diagnose someone, I can be legally held liable. So I just want to make sure that's clear from the public school side. And I do agree the way that our system works, it's broken here in the States. It is. It definitely needs improvement. I agree with everyone, but I don't. And again, I've worked in different school sites in different districts in different parts of the state of California. So some districts are not very understanding. Some are. Again, it depends per district. So I'm not sure if I'm comfortable overgeneralizing, saying they're all horrible, because they're not. There are some good ones out there, but yes, improvement is a good thing as well. Also, from a teacher's point of view, there's a lot of pressure on teachers. There's something called child find, and a lot of teachers are expected to notice certain behaviors, and if the child needs it, to go out of their way to make sure they get it. So there is a pressure on the teachers, which isn't a good thing. It's not a good thing, but a lot of teachers have that as well. But in general, I do think there's more that can be done. And for me, being a teacher of the visually impaired special education teacher and an orientation mobility specialist, my kids are out there. they do get movement. They do get a lot of things. And I have seen some school districts really work on getting the movement done and helping children, especially with neurodivergence. So I almost think it's like a district by district thing sometimes. But I do agree we need to work on it. We need to be aware of it, and we can definitely improve and help our students.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Mhm.
Joe, welcome.
Hello.
Hi.
It's
Go
a
on.
pleasure to be
What's
here.
your views?
I was just thinking, I haven't got a background in mental health. When I was young, the teachers were 50s, 60s, possibly some of the 70s. There were rumours they'd been retired from other schools, but the gist of it was, autism was not understood then in children, nor probably any of the other neurodiverse conditions. So being a good little autistic girl, I would have been quite quiet and not being picked up, apart from by not fitting in with most of the other children at school. So, and I got vague memories of saying, I don't want to go to school. No, you've got to go to school. And put it this way, being bullied, I wouldn't want anybody to go through what I did. And I guess that had an effect on my mental health, but I didn't really know what was a good state of mental health, I don't believe. And I ended up being late diagnosed. But so schools didn't really understand enough to know then. And I think with not enough understanding, I think a lot of children in my position would have suffered at that point. But is someone's understanding better than absolutely no understanding? Possibly, yes. So I think so I don't think it did a lot for my self-esteem, which if that ties into mental health and my feeling confident to do what I could do. I think basically the negatives were looked on and not the positives.
Yeah. Yeah. So, sorry, I think I was breaking up there. I don't know why. Welcome, Sara. I know you're a big advocate for these things.
Thank you. I was trying to find my unmute button there. Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I'm also from the United States. I'm from Utah. I was first a mother of an autistic son before my whole family was diagnosed after that. Children, husband, myself. So now I'm coming from a very wide range of perspectives and able to give lots of grace and understanding along the way and lots of learning through a couple decades now. And yeah, definitely, I think it's great to have different perspectives because my son was diagnosed at 16 months and he was non-speaking until 5, but also profoundly gifted. So he was doing complex math, and when he could speak finally, languages, he speaks 130 languages today at the age of 14. But with that also came the challenge of the school system not being able to provide the realm of experience and education that my child needed at that time. And this was 12 years ago. So I think that a bit has changed since then. And there are some better gifted communities out there that are starting to come about and offer more services. But I was told at first grade, we can't teach your child algebra, and I had to remove him from school and begin my homeschool journey for his entirety of his school duration. He has finished school at 12, finished high school, and now we are literally sitting in his room on YouTube all day long. And it's the hardest thing ever because there's no programs now from the 14 to 18. Like, I find this huge gap of services and programs for him to be able to gain what he needs as life skills, and the communication skills. So for me, that was a really huge blow when my child was so young to be told we don't have a program like this. And I said to them, well, you are doing a disservice to us and to all the other children that will come behind him, because there needs to be something, like, make it now for him and let us be the first ones then. But they didn't take that, unfortunately. But I also have a daughter who is ADHD and dyslexic. So there's a whole another standard of support that's needed. She's hyper intellectual, hyper social emotional skills, yet really hard time in reading and math with dyslexia, which then gives her this really hard barrier to work with social peer groups, that she's being held back, but she's far ahead of her peer group socially, emotionally. So it's this really hard gap of services and understanding of what our children's needs and accommodations are right now. I think a wonderful way might be to look at, because it is systematic. It does start, unfortunately, at the very beginning. And I found that preschool was our best years of our lives, basically. But when we entered that kindergarten, first grade era, everything started to kind of compound. And so I think that maybe markers in that kindergarten area for every student, maybe more perceptive markers to, I hate to categorize, but I think that's the only way we'll be able to appropriately accommodate or give children the services that they need for their own individualized plan. So that's my soapbox.
Wow, that.
Yeah. Kerry.
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So
Yeah.
I've listened to what the others have said. As a mother of 2 children with autism, we struggled through mainstream primary schools, and we ultimately had to pull both of them out of school for 12 months. And we had to fight for our daughter's education healthcare plan, to then get her into an SEN school where she is right now, with the right support in place. When she was in a mainstream school, she was absolutely fine up until we got to the school gates, and then once she'd go through them, that'd be it. Her mask would be on, and she'd just cover everything up and pretend to be a perfect normal child, which is what school viewed her as. According to school, there's nothing wrong with her. She doesn't have autism. The diagnosis was wrong. She's absolutely fine. Until obviously we got the professionals in and said, no, this child needs help. This needs support. This, and this. So yeah, so that's why she moved into her special needs school. She's been diagnosed with autism. She's been diagnosed with anxiety. So obviously that ties into the mental health thing. Now obviously when she's in a mainstream, in a special school, I think there are some days where she does mask, but then there's definitely other days where the mask is down. She comes home telling us about the boys in her class and how she has a laughs with them and everything like that. Something that she never did before when she was in a mainstream school. So I definitely think her being in a SEN setting is actually helping her mental health. And that's me.
Okay. Nancy.
I'm proud that I sat here through all of this and didn't comment. So I'm giving myself kudos for that. So I'm from Canada. So the problem with the political system that funds the education program is that there's so much money that goes from the top. Fed. The top eats up a lot of the money. There's not enough funneling down to the systems, whether we're talking about children that are diagnosed as special needs or children that are undiagnosed. We have an epidemic with trauma. There's a mass epidemic with trauma. We have children that are struggling with grief. There's a counselor that comes in and talks to the entire school, then sits down with those children who have been impacted, and they don't come back. A child cannot speak for themselves and say, I need more counseling. My family needs counseling. And then that trickles down. Then we've got youth at risk. The addiction rates go up. It's a systemic problem that affects every child and every adult. If we focus on the talents of the human being, there's so much more that can be exemplified in their excellence. The problem is so much bigger than just within the schools. Our children are our future, though. Our parents are struggling. And when the parent struggles and has to fight for more, the entire family struggles. And because it is a diplomatic system in the public schools, there's a lot of bureaucracy, a lot of red tape that takes away from the time and the money that can be spent on the children. The more that we listen to the parents, I'm blessed to have 5 children that have made it through the school system. Only 1 graduated from the regular school system. 2 of them went through homeschooling because they didn't fit in. How can we fit in when there's 1 box or 1 circle? We need to create more programs that focus on the child, whether they're diagnosed or not diagnosed. When we separate children, I'm not sure if that's always the solution. I'm all about integration and having systems working together. The separate systems, the special needs systems, are working wonderfully. If the public systems would listen more to what those experts are saying, I think that the public systems would improve, because the special needs programs are filled with experts who are thinking outside of the box of conformity. I don't believe conformity is the way for our children to be brought up. Back to you, Adam.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, well, thanks for everyone's perspective. I think it's brilliant. And obviously, as me and Ashley were saying earlier, we love how people from all over the world are here tonight, giving our own perspective on these things. So kudos to everyone. And I know we've got some comments anyway, which is brilliant. Which is, yeah. So where do we go from here? Like, how can we actually help our children to progress on this journey?
I'll go
Yeah.
on this. Because, by the way, Nancy, thank you for what you said, because that's a lot of my teaching philosophy, and that is how I view my children. It's not one size fits all. I'm very big on seeing the child, not their label. I just look at it in case there might be something I need to know, but that's it from that point on. Where do we go? That's a really good question. It's really hard, but as an advocate, I can tell you it's to stay strong, be a good example, and as much as it's not fun to have to fight for our children and their needs, parents are the key. Parents are the key. I think the parents are the ones that are going to lead the way. Because it's really interesting in the individualized education plan, right? The IEP. I always tell parents, because they don't realize it, they are part of the IEP team. They are the ones that make the difference, because no matter what experts or whoever might say, in the end, they're the ones that know their children best. They're the ones that are with them. I'm only with these kids a couple of hours a day, sometimes a few times a week. I don't know everything. I don't see their whole day. I know them, but I don't know them the way a parent does. And I don't have that expertise the parent does. So I really think parents are going to be the ones that lead the way and sound the horn and make the difference, because I shouldn't say this, but I've been in IEPs where parents and there are some that have been pressured into signing an IEP form, even though they didn't agree with it. And I will tell them, if they don't agree, don't sign it. I'm like, if you don't agree and you think this is not going to be good for their mental health, if there's not an acceptable program, no. I'm like, don't. And I said, you know what? Tough on the teachers, because then we have to go back and redo everything. But that's our job. We are your staff. We're here for you. We have to accommodate your child and their need. So I think parents are going to be the way in every aspect. I think they're the ones that lead the charge. As hard as it might be, God bless them all, but I think they can do it.
Yeah, definitely.
It is. It's very important for the parents to become involved, and the parents who have the strength, the will, determination, the courage to become major players in the system, get on the board.
Yes.
Get on the board. If you are a strong advocate, if you are feeling a need, make the time. If you've got the voice and you feel that is your calling, then do that. It's more than just being a part of the PTA. I mean, that's nice for bake sales and cookies and all those pretty things. But it's being on the board. It's getting on the directors. It's being that voice, because when you're on a board of directors, you're somewhat closer to the political system and an understanding as to why the funding is going where it is. And you can stand up and say no, and say it loud. Be loud. Yeah.
Nancy, can I add to that real quick? Because there are some people that are not comfortable speaking up and being out there, even though, we all love our child, but let's say someone has anxiety or fear of public speaking. They can always get an advocate too, to advocate for them. As long as, and I love your suggestion too, that's absolutely wonderful. Make sure you're heard. Make sure everything is met before you sign or have anything legally stated, so your child's taken care of. Absolutely.
And I'd love to add to that I think it's perfect transition, because one thing I always have advocated for, because my son can advocate for himself, my daughter can, and I need to teach her how. And she's in those IEP meetings with me, and I'm asking her directly. I'm telling those teachers, you ask her what she needs. She is this is her. This isn't my meeting. This isn't, and I'm lucky enough to have special education attorneys that we're maybe going to do an IEP Ask an Attorney podcast in the future. But it's, something that I think is so important for parents to know, that their rights and their what they need to do for their child. But what I was going to say is that just something that I love to just share that I've learned is this 3-tiered idea, that you're somewhere in the middle. And so the best thing you can do is reach out to someone in the step above you. Ask for their help. Ask them to show you, help me, show me the way. Reach for someone next to you in the same position you're in. Hold on to their hand so tightly, because you're in it together in this boat. And then reach out to someone that's not quite in the place you're at. Reach your hand out to them to join you, to teach them, to help them learn to advocate. I think there's nothing better. And that's how we build community. And that's how we can hopefully make this change with these amazing warriors that we are showing up like we do. So I think that was just great to add to that.
Yeah, and I'm going to
What do you
just
think,
add
Kerry?
that.
Do you think I should get onto the board?
I was going to say, I'm going to add to it. Obviously, me and Adam go to an autism group once a month, and that's what the group does. It's basically Parents of children with autism and various other neurodiverse conditions, we all come together and we all help each other. So there's parents in there that are just starting the pathway to the autism diagnosis, so we're learning about autism, etc. And one of the first things we say is get ready to fight, because it's going to be a fight, and make sure that they listen to you, because you are the expert on your child, not them, not the expert, not these professionals that they come in. You are the expert, because you're the parent, you're the one that's there day in, day out. You know your child better than them. You know what support they need. So, and Adam, no, I don't, because you'll get yourself locked up.
That's right, Adam. You would get yourself locked up. So, yeah, that's right. Stand there all innocent. Well, and I will say, just because, like, I homeschool my biological kids, but when we had our foster son in the school system, he had an IEP. And I was constantly in contact with teachers and his IEP teacher, the principal, the people that I needed to be in contact with. But I think what really frustrated me the most was, okay, he has this IEP, and while he has access to additional like test reading services and things like that, it was especially with the new Common Core here in the United States, the Common Core curriculum. They were rolling that out as he was in school, and it was more so, oh, well, we've moved on beyond that lesson, so he can't do any of the work. Like, we're not accepting it. But then how do you expect him to be able to learn it and to be able to understand it if you're not willing to allow him to do the work? I don't care if he gets a 0. He still needs to put in the time, and he still needs to be able to ask questions. Not just, oh, sorry, too bad, we've moved on. Like, we don't have time for you now. Like, that is what drove me bananas about the public school system. And his IEP teacher, I have a relationship with her. She's an amazing woman. And I don't think it was her. It was just the structure of the math teachers that he had. And it's just how the public school system works. And it does a disservice to the kids when you tell them, oh, sorry, we've moved on. We can't go back to that now. But then, oh, you're failing? Okay, too bad. Like, nothing I can do to help you. How does that help a child feel like they can succeed? They don't. Then they're either repeating the whole entire class, because I was the mom that was like, you're not just going to repeat one semester, because by the time you get to this after second semester in the summer, you're not going to remember a blasted thing. So you're going to do the whole entire class over. We're not going to say, oh, well, now you can just take this class instead. No, you're going to complete that class, and you're going to do it whether you're in 2 math classes or not. Like, this is just what it is, because you need to know what it is that they're teaching you. Granted, at the time, he probably doesn't even use any of it anymore. But still, like, that was just my philosophy. No, we're not going to skate him away from something that he needs to be learning. So, I don't know. I just have a very hard time. And don't get me wrong, I love teachers. They have one of the hardest jobs in the world, and they're very underpaid outside of moms, right? But at the same time, there are a lot of bad teachers out there, just like any profession. There are a lot of bad teachers, there are a lot of bad districts, and a lot of bureaucracy. And it trickles down into the teachers, their political beliefs, all of the things. It trickles down, and it goes into the children. And that's not okay. Like, it needs to be a separate side of the coin.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there are a lot of bad teachers out there, and I do admit, especially within the local authority as well. Now, I have to talk about them, and I know Kerry's thinking, here we go. But I remember when, see, there you go. But No, but to be
Can I go?
serious now, I am behaving. Come on, Kerry. I am behaving to a degree. But when we was homeschooling Lucas, obviously he had the EHC lamb, which obviously still does. But we did a little bit of research and we spoke to other SCM parents, and they basically said, "Well, hang on a minute, is he getting his EHC plan funding?" I'm like, "No, you do know he's entitled to it, access it." I'm like, "Really? Okay." So we did a little bit of digging. So we rang the local authority. We wanted him into the SCN school as well. But obviously, local authority thinking, no, he doesn't belong there. He's just this typical naughty child, which no, he's not. He's misunderstood. And thing is, at one point, he was actually denied going to this SEN school because he's too clever. Too clever to actually be accepted into a school. So I was arguing with the deputy director of the education in the council, and she basically rang me saying, "Right, Adam, what do you want me to do?" And this is exactly what I said. I said, "I want you to do your fucking job," and that's what I said. But now I'm blocked from talking to them.
I mean, I think it's tricky because there are really bad teachers and there are really good teachers, and there's bad parents, good parents. I think one of the things I noticed in my school is that there needs to be consistency. I think with particularly with children who have either autistic spectrum or special education needs, they need that consistency between what they the way their routine is managed at home and how it's managed at school. Because I think sometimes what I found is that if getting a routine of school and the way their certain behaviours managed at school and then it's managed differently or not managed at home or vice versa, then there's obviously that challenges can arise from that. And I think that's what ideal thing is obviously for ideally for parents to obviously have that, like you mentioned, the agreed plan to collaborate, so that there's that consistency for a child. And I think consistency is what often they need so much, consistency in the way they're treated, consistency to an extent the routine, and I think it's I've seen both sides. I've seen it being almost the fault of parents, and I've seen teachers who weren't following that as well. So I've seen both sides in some schools I've been at, but I think it's responsibility lies in both really. I think it's teachers and parents have to play their part in establishing the right environment and right routine, because children obviously had 12 hours at home and they go to 8 hours at school. It's a long time period in both. So I think it's I think it's key. The key thing really is it's not about just putting on the responsibility of parent or responsibility of school. I think it's got to work towards that joint. Somehow that joint, it's a joint collaborative effort, isn't it, really?
Absolutely. What do you think, Jean?
I completely agree with Nick. I think the importance of a school-parent partnership is absolutely crucial, regardless of whether your kid is in public school or they have a tutor or any kind of program. Both of my daughters had IEPs in school, and both of them went to traditional public school for part of the time, and then they both attended alternative high school excuse me, for the last couple of years of their school career. And I have to say, with all of the issues that I have with the public school system as a whole, I am eternally grateful to some of the most incredible teachers. And like I think Ashley might have said, or somebody said, there are some really fantastic teachers out there, and teachers deserve a lot more credit than what they get. It's an incredibly difficult job as an educator myself. It's a very, overworked, underpaid, underappreciated. I think a lot of people don't understand, and particularly with early education, we are also lumped in with childcare. So we often have kids getting dropped off at 7:30 in the morning and not getting picked up until 5:30 at night. And so we're with them 10 hours a day. Their parents bring them home, have a couple hours with them, dinner time, put them in bed, and then the weekends. So, in the early care sector, we're literally raising some of these kids ourselves. And if you don't have that quality partnership with parents, it's almost impossible, because there has to be that consistency between school and home. And I think we're seeing now, again, I'm speaking from the early education side of things, but we're seeing now a massive increase in behavior challenges, which really kind of shake out into, I think, mental health, along with, educational and social emotional issues. But I think, I've been in this industry for decades and decades, and we used to have, it would be pretty typical to have a couple of kids per year that were, just a lot more challenging, required a lot more support. And now it's like 60% of the kids. And I think that's a post-COVID phenomenon. A lot of the kids that we're seeing now were in utero during COVID, and, that trauma, and the uncertainty of the world and all of that really just kind of trickled down. And obviously we're in a situation now in this day that we're living in, so different than, as a kid who grew up in, the 80s and, late 70s, early 80s, going to school. And, we didn't have, we had a TV, but nobody wanted to sit in front of the TV except for on, Saturday morning cartoons maybe, but we had no devices. Computers were just starting to come out, but it wasn't the kind of thing that kids were in front of. And so, that disconnection from nature and the amount of time spent outside makes a massive impact on mental health. And, the artificial environments in schools, artificial lighting, poor air quality, issues with funding getting cut. And often when funding gets cut, the first things that go are arts and, physical activity, recess and PE class. Those are kind of like the first. Music, all the things that are the most important get sliced out of the budget first. So I think there's a lot of reasons for the disconnect that's happening and the increase that we're seeing in these issues. But again, having that connection between home and the educational environment is super crucial.
Well, and I hope it's okay if I jump in really quick, that and Adam just put into the chat, just last week I did an international autism summit just last weekend. It was so amazing. And while I was looking for kind of sponsors and people, I ran across this woman, and she has this data collection app that literally runs across every category you can imagine, a sleep schedule, a food schedule, a medication schedule, just everything that you can track, and then it puts it together, and then you can share it with your teacher. You can share it with your special education team. You can share it with your OT, with your speech therapist, with your pediatrician. And so that everybody has this picture of your child, not only how they are, but daily. You could have it up to the minute of what this child's, how much water they drink that day and everything. So it's Adam put it in the chat. And so hopefully people take advantage of it before this woman catches on that it should not be free. No, it's wonderful. And I am just wow, I'm so impressed by it. And obviously there's no accolades in it for me. I just think that it's such an incredible tool and should be utilized by any and everybody that can be using it.
Yeah.
I believe it's important for every parent to remember.
My next question.
Oops. I was just going to, sorry, Adam, I didn't mean to cut you off. I'll wait.
No, go on, Nancy. Go on.
I believe it's important for every parent who has a child to remember the importance of their wellness and their ability to take care of themselves so that they can take care of their children. There are many parents out there who are struggling with their own problems, which is taking away from their ability to be the best possible parent that they can. You can't feed from you can't drink from an empty cup. So personal wellness of the parent is exponentially important. And then I love the comment before about working through the hierarchy of the system, because there is somebody that's going to listen. There is somebody. It's about coming in through different doors and different angles. I know when Emily, my daughter, passed away when she was 10 years old, and it was her principal who greeted every single person at her celebration of life. He is an amazing human being. The people that are in the education system are human beings. They've got hearts. Bridge that gap. You'll find the heart within the human that's with your child. It takes effort.
Maybe Adam needs to take note of that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
See? And there's the bullying. No, I'm joking. Right. What is the difference between support in a public mainstream school compared to support in a special educational needs school? That's what I'm really interested in, because I've seen both sides, positive and negative, in both sides of school.
Okay,
Are you
so
sure
I guess
you've seen the
But I'd like to
positives,
know your
Adam?
views.
well, I guess my question
What?
to you, I'm sorry. So I guess my question to you is then, I'm not quite sure what you mean by the difference in support. Because again, here in the States, right, it's federally funded. When your child gets their IEP,
Yeah.
like their, let's say, assistive communication device, because I'm also a speech therapy assistant as well. So if they need something to help them talk or whatever, that type of device.
Okay,
either
I'll
school will get
elaborate.
it. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll elaborate. Basically, in the
Okay.
mainstream school, they,
Uh-huh.
like, obviously with our kids, they weren't challenging our kids enough to meeting their
Right.
needs, and that was one of the reasons why we pulled them. And
Okay.
even then, like for example, with our eldest son, when he was in mainstream school, like in his first mainstream school, he was actually assaulted by one of the teachers because they didn't understand him.
Oh, I'm
And
sorry.
because he was one of these, he couldn't sit still, and he got himself into a routine where he obviously sat at the front of the class, and after 15 minutes he was allowed to just get up and go to the back of the class, but obviously stay with where he can see everything and hear everything, play with a fidget toy, but obviously still interacting. He was allowed to do that. But on this one particular day, they had Ofsted going in, and he was actually made to sit at the front of the class longer than what he should, and that caused him to become emotionally distressed. And obviously that's when things escalated, and they excluded him for going into crisis. But then compared to a special educational needs school, now obviously yes, there has been positives, but obviously I've seen negatives as well when it comes to the lack of communication. Now I think we can all agree that when it comes to an educational healthcare plan, it definitely needs improving in a general society. But what do we do to support that child's needs when it comes to things like this? I hope I make sense there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll just throw in a bit of my experience, Adam. So, I mean, I've only been in some mainstream schools, but I think it obviously depends on the needs of a child. So, in my class I'm in, there's 5 children, and 2 or 3 have quite mild, very mild autism, and they can pretty much join in the class. And there's about 35 children, it's quite a large class. They can pretty much join in the class. But the child I've got, he can't, to be honest, he can't join in the class. He's got very severe ADHD and a bit of autism, and so I'm with him 1-to-1, and he sits at a side table. So I think it very, very varies. So for him, he's been recommended, special educational needs school, because there he'll be surrounded by just but all the teachers and all the other children will be there with similar needs, and it'd be to him to sit, there's no real benefit to him sitting in class with 35 other children, and he can't interact with them, and he can't follow the teacher. He just can't, he just unfortunately just can't follow it, can't give attention. So I think it does very much depend on the needs of a child. It's very much about individual care, individual needs. I think it's hard to generalize, but I think it's really, the trouble is with a mainstream school is it's there for the mainstream. So I think in most of the classes in the mainstream schools in England, most they're quite class getting bigger and bigger, but most of the children, but only a few in each class, overall will have special education needs. But I think that means the teacher and the classes will be angled towards most of the children. And I think that's the challenge, isn't it? That's where I found that some of the children I've supported, they just struggle because the classes have been done by the teacher to the 30 children without special education needs, and they've been sort of almost left on the side. So and not get and the only support I've got is just the one-to-one for myself or someone else. And I guess that's the point, I think, is whether they get it one-to-one, but would they get in the special education needs? Would they get it more than just one-to-one, but also from a team of other teachers and people?
Yeah.
But it depends on the needs, I think.
Okay. Yeah, I agree. I guess where I was getting confused, because I don't know, maybe it's different where you guys live. Because even if you're in a public school, right, here in the States, they have special day classes that are still on the public school site, but the classes and the staff within that classroom are geared towards the special needs of the child. And so it's run by a special education teacher. Then you have all of these specialists that come in and assist as well. The assistants are trained for that child. If the child needs one-to-one, in my case, my kiddos are visually impaired, so I might have their instructional assistant. I might have to teach some of them braille to braille things if I'm not there or whatever. But I do agree with you, Nick. It's more centered towards the child and their needs and their educational needs, and their education is then modified to their learning style and what will help them access curriculum. So yes, I agree. I guess, I'm sorry, Adam, that's where I was getting confused, because here you still have those classes at a special, like a
well, I hope it made sense now.
At a school, yeah. So I get it. But yeah, I agree. It's more specialized towards a child. It's child focused, and it's more towards them and the student.
See, and I like that you say that, Leanne. I, however, have had a different experience with foster kids that have been other foster children that have been in our care, where the school is like, I don't know what else to do with you. Like, you have to go to this offsite location, and then the child is even more defiant because they don't know how to handle. So then you've got the authorities involved. You've got a kid that's running away because they're not understood, and they've got anger issues because, again, we're not dealing, like Nancy said, with the trauma, the things that they're going through at home, the reasons why they were taken out of their home. Like, they're being compared to a parent that might be incarcerated, like drug issues, all of the things. And then you've got this like school system that throws up its hands and essentially quits on the child. Like, we've seen that happen. And we've even had a child that he couldn't stay in school. He kept getting suspended. So then he was put into like a day treatment program, and the day treatment program was supposed to be more of that one-on-one specialized like education, but yet there's all of these other kids there. So then when he's defiant, he's in like this, like, I don't want to say lockdown room, but he's in this specific room to be able to do whatever to try to regulate himself. But when he can't regulate himself, it's come pick him up. We can't take care, like, we can't do anything with this. So at what point does that not frustrate the parent? You know, when you're like, okay, I'm entrusting you to be able to handle this. Like, this is what you're supposed to be specialized in, and you're throwing your hands up. So then it just becomes this whole frustrated cycle and circle of, well, okay, we'll just wash our hands. And that's a problem, because then of course you've got kids that then, yes, fall through the cracks, they fall through the system, and it's just another adult or authority figure, if you will, in their life that has quit on them because they're not understood. They're misunderstood. And as a parent, you can do all that you possibly can. But again, when you also have a foster care system that you're battling against, that is constantly trying to reunify them in the trauma that they were removed from, what do? You do the best that you can with the tools that you've been given. And I understand that teachers do the same. But at the same time, where do we end the insanity? Where do we stop it? Where does it stop?
Teachers and parents coming together to agree that the problem is not a crack in the system, it's a canyon.
It is.
It's not a crack,
Yeah.
it's a canyon.
It is.
Here in Canada, we have tent cities that are communities of people that have struggled their entire lives. The trauma is evident everywhere. So if we can come together and collaborate, so much more is possible. But look what we've got here. We've got a collaboration of parents, educators, and experts. If the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 of us can get together, more collaboration.
Yeah,
Let's keep talking.
absolutely.
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
I see Kerry's trying to say something.
There definitely has to be more education for teachers around mental health and special needs, because not every child's parents are going to fight for the extra support that child needs. Unfortunately, there are some parents out there that are just not willing to fight. So obviously it's going to fall to the teachers to help that child, or to raise issues and say this child needs support, maybe go to a different school, etc. And yeah, all credit to teachers, because it is obviously a really hard job. They are. So obviously it's going to fall to I'm echoing. I don't like that. I don't know why I'm echoing. Oh, it's gone. Yeah. But yeah, and obviously, as I was saying, teachers are amazing. They are underpaid. There are some fantastic teachers in there, and we've come across a few absolutely amazing teachers. But then we've also come across a couple really rubbish teachers, haven't we, Adam? Yeah, and Adam makes it known of his opinion of them.
Well, like we said, we have to stand up and protect our kids, don't we?
Yeah, but the way you do it, don't act all innocent in your little corner, because you're not.
I love my little corner.
That's the blessing of having two parents working together.
No, like obviously, for example, when our kids were in at the second mainstream school, I was literally walking away from the school, and I literally just got back home. It was about 10 to 10. So I literally just come through the door, and I got a phone call. Oh, you need to come and pick Lucas up. I'm like, why? Oh, because he's been kicking off and basically making a mess of a room. And I'm like, okay, can I ask why he's doing that? Oh, he's just being aggressive and stuff like that. I'm like, okay, but I actually question, have you actually assessed to why he's actually kicking off? Like, has the Senko done her assessment? No, don't need to. Don't they have a duty of care for this? And it turned out the reason he did it is because he was finding the work way too easy, and he couldn't communicate with anyone in that school because of how clever he is. And he had 2 TAs as well.
Did it help that the school actually
shows.
took his one-to-one teacher off him?
We all don't fit.
Exactly.
We all don't fit in that
prompting.
Yeah. Sometimes we don't fit in the school. Sometimes our children simply don't fit in that environment. And when the environment doesn't suit the student, then there are options available. It takes effort and courage to stay the course as a parent to find the right one.
And this is why because obviously this particular head teacher who had a problem with me, personally problem, she basically said, "Oh, we don't believe Lucas can handle mainstream school," and I'm like, "No, it's not that. It's he can handle school. It's you can't handle him." And it turned out mainstream schools can actually give kids who are specially talent exam papers to see what level they're at. He got none of that. The support they gave Tegan was an absolute embarrassment, wasn't it, Kerry? It was an embarrassment. But I know Kerry went in the class and saw the support, and it was embarrassing.
But it's good. I mean, it's good you've obviously pushed and challenged the school because, yeah, there's not always the right fit or the right support. But I think, you know, as a parent, sometimes we need to question what we're told by teachers or experts. We have to challenge it and push, challenge it, and I think that's it's obviously sometimes we have to do that, and I think it's good that you've obviously done that because that's
but there's pushing and challenging, but then there's pushing and challenging in Adam's way.
Sure. Yeah. Okay, Adam, I did my way.
Yeah, there's a reason why he didn't like you, Adam. Wasn't that bad is an understatement. There's a reason that teacher didn't like you.
I believe Kerry.
It wasn't that bad.
Oh, wow.
I'm not even. It wasn't that bad. Okay. We'll agree to disagree on that one, Adam.
Be careful, Adam. Amazon box. Just remember, Amazon box. Anywho, do we have any other questions that have popped up in the chat?
Yeah,
let's just not go down that one.
No, there's no questions.
Or we can talk about what's coming next week.
Right, next week it's just going to be just me, Ashley, and who's the guest again? My phone literally just died, so I don't know.
I can't read my handwriting. I can't read my handwriting. Yeah, Sergeant Michael Sugri. I can't read my handwriting. It's Sergeant Michael.
That's who's coming on next week.
Yes, he is. And it's going to be. Oh, geez, I completely forgot. What was the topic we decided? It was going to be something like military trauma of sorts, wasn't it? Isn't that what we were discussing?
I don't have it in my calendar because I'm not going to be there. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I can't be there.
I know. I don't have the topic written down. I completely forgot what we're
next week on mental health warriors. We're going to be talking about the military and organization.
There you go. Thanks, Nancy. Way to fill in the gaps.
Love it.
Thank you.
You know what? That fits into what me and Adam were talking about earlier on, actually, about how men have no organisation.
I've got the title.
There you go. What's the title?
It's actually Winning the Battle Against Frontline Trauma.
Ooh, cool. I like it.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's
powerful.
I've actually created the link and everything. I've created it. So that's organisation, Kerry.
There you go.
Of course it is.
Way to go, Adam.
Yes.
Way to go.
Gold star, dude.
Yes.
You're more organized than I am at the moment.
So I know Nick and Nancy is going to be back on the 10th of May to discuss that topic when it's called When the Soul Speaks. So I think Nancy's going to be bringing her crystals for that one. I don't know. Or her cards. What? You muted. Where's she gone?
I don't see her on screen.
Oh.
She was talking while muted, and now she's just gone.
She vanished. The 17th is going to be a rockin' one.
Which one's that?
Dangers of argument.
Oh, that's. We know who to get on. We know.
Kerry, are you going to be on for that one?
Uh-oh.
I don't know. I don't know what I'm doing that day yet. I can be if you want me to be.
Oh goodness. Okay,
Fantastic.
why?
It might end up with me
Okay.
and Adam having an argument on screen though.
That's
Yeah,
all right. Just
Joe
the theme.
Farmer in the comments.
Okay.
Joe
she's up.
Farmer's just put in the comments. She would have said more, but her internet kept going. So we'll bring her back at some point as well. But Jen, how have you found it?
The whole show? Is that what you're asking?
Yes.
Lovely. Lovely. I think this is a
Yes.
fantastic, important conversation. There's so many different avenues that it could go, and it's a ongoing conversation. Absolutely.
Absolutely, yes. Yes. Leanne?
I loved it. Thank you. I love working together and hearing different viewpoints. And I think we can set the example for everybody. So I love it. This is fantastic.
Absolutely. I'm sorry, but all week I've just had this white feather keep coming past me. I've had it all week, and I don't know why.
You haven't Googled it?
No, I don't have Google.
Well, then I'll search for you. Oh, I'm on it.
Don't do Google.
Don't do
No, I've
Google.
got my views on Google, actually.
Don't bother.
Yeah, that's another topic. That's not,
Exactly.
She
No
doesn't
way.
even think you want. She knows what I'm talking about.
We're not going to go there, Adam. Okay, we are not going to go there today. No, sir.
No, but
Okay.
I
No.
participated in your crazy once already today.
Yeah, more conspiracy
No,
theories.
thank you.
see,
Oh
and
goodness.
see,
No,
that's what I mean.
Adam knows
Ashley
that
Perry's
I'm just
bullying me
playing.
today.
I haven't done nothing. I'm
Oh
innocent.
yeah.
I haven't done
gosh.
nothing.
Innocent,
It's
yeah.
fine.
And I've got a violin here.
Innocent
Yeah,
until
world's
proven
smallest violin
guilty.
is right here, Adam, and I'll play the world's saddest song just for you.
Oh my gosh.
Right, I'm going to wrap.
Oh, okay.
Please share this, everyone, and we'll see you next week.
All right, bye, guys.
Bye.
Nice to meet
Thank
you.
you.
Take care.